Okay, the next thing we'll talk about is using the pressure sensitivity of your pen to your advantage when working in Photoshop. Made a new document, I'll zoom in, and I've got my brush tool selected. We're going to be working with some of the options found at the top of your menu when you have your brush selected. Now we already talked about how to change the size of it and how to change the hardness of it, and even how to change the opacity of your brush. But there are ways you can change the opacity and the size of it based on the pressure sensitivity of how much you're pressing down with your pen tablet. By default, I've chosen this first little brush to work with from here. And it's either a hard edge brush or a soft edge brush. I'm going to keep it pretty hard edge just so we can see the differences. Next to the opacity option of the little slider, you have this icon. When it's selected, you've turned on pressure sensitivity for the opacity of it, which means now if I was to start painting with it, the lighter I press with my pen, the lighter the opacity, and the more I press, the more opaque it becomes, all the way till it's very, very dark from there. So very, very light to very, very dark. Very light pressure will do that. Holding it down makes it much, much darker. Now this especially comes in handy when you're trying to blend things together. So if I was to change my brush from a hard edge to a very soft edge, and I was very, very softly pressing down on it, I can build up the opacity very, very slowly. This is a great way of painting clouds in. Versus if I wanted to very quickly do an area, I can hold down the opacity and build up that area very quickly as well. But that's what this first little icon allows you to do. Using pressure sensitivity, it changes the opacity that you're working with. I'm going to uncheck it. The very last one, located just past the flow, allows pressure sensitivity for the size of your brush. And this is actually a more natural way of working. With it turned on, the harder I press, the larger my brush size will be. Let's change this back to a hard-edged brush. Versus the softer I press, you can see it's very, very thin, and the more I press, it gets much, much, much larger. And the size of it will never go any larger than the size of the brush that you have selected. In my case, I've got it set to 150 pixels. If I set it to 85, it'll never go larger than 85, but it will get much smaller because I'm just barely pressing down with my pen. That can go very quickly. I say this is a natural way of drawing because think about using a brush. If you were painting something with a brush and you were just touching the tip of that brush to your canvas, it would only get that little bit edge of it. Versus if I press down very hard with it, more of my brush would be touching the canvas and therefore more ink or more paint would be along with it as well. So do pay attention to if you have this turned on or turned off. You can adjust the opacity of something. If you have both of them turned on, not only will it adjust the size of it, but it will also adjust the opacity of it. And how you're using those whenever you do your paintings. Remember, if you want to very easily and very slowly build something up, it would be best to adjust the pen pressure opacity of it. But if you're trying to move in from large details to small details very quickly, this is where I would adjust the size based on your pressure. You can go very small and very large very quickly from that.